I do not have any psychic powers, but I'm going to predict the future anyway. I predict that you will never be a great leader until you believe so passionately in yourself and your vision for your department, your district, your school, that you will not let go of it, that you have a constancy about your vision. Because if you do not believe passionately enough in it and your ability to fulfill it, you will throw in the towel way too soon. You will give in to the barrage of criticism that will come your way. And make no mistake about it, criticism will come to all leaders eventually, and sometimes very intense criticism and opposition. There are little aphorisms that I've written through the years that I like to share with my audiences. I'll only share one with you today. Here is Riggsism number 1 for you. Very profound. Listen carefully. Anytime you are right, you will be opposed by those who are wrong. Deep, huh? As a leader, you do not have the luxury of choosing whether you are opposed or not. You merely have the luxury of choosing whether you are opposed by people who are right or people who are wrong. And when you are opposed, you must remain constant. Constant on the vision. Now, this is a point at which I am telling you to do as I say, not as I do. Or as I did. I used to be in the ministry. I started a church when I was 29 and grew it into the thousands, almost 2,000 attendants in just 3 years flat, less than 3 years. And while other people were thriving under my ministry, I was imploding. I became deeply depressed, and I went down to the beach and I took hours to walk up and down the beach in February or March. The place was deserted, and I was thinking that I had to be the loneliest, most miserable, empty human being on earth. And the thing that was destroying me was the constant criticism. People criticized me for everything. They criticized me for my hair, which I had at the time. They criticized me for my sermons. They were too short, or they were too long, or they were too funny to be taken seriously, or not funny enough to attract people who didn't normally go to church. They were too deep, or they were too shallow. People criticized my leadership skills. And there was no way I could fix it, because there was a whole faction in the church that were all up in arms because they said that I was not a take-charge leader the way I needed to be. And there was a whole faction of the church that was up in arms because they said I was a demanding, domineering, my way or the highway kind of leader. And there was no way that I could remedy the situation, because if I tried to appease Group A, I would be sticking my finger in the eye of Group B. And if I tried to placate Group B, I would be rubbing salt in the wound of Group A. And the thing that made it doubly difficult to take was both groups told me they knew they were right because God had told them so. And hence my depression. And my friends would say things like, Billy, it comes with the job. It's part of the territory. Water off a duck's back, hide of a rhinoceros. And I knew they were right intellectually, but I just had trouble adjusting emotionally. Eventually, I adjusted emotionally. They criticized me for adjusting emotionally. And they may have had a point. Because I gave my executive assistant specific instructions at one point, 3 or 4 years in, that if ever anyone made an appointment with me to try and criticize me, that she was to tell them I didn't have time to meet with them. And so somebody would call on Monday morning, hot as a firecracker, and say, I want to talk with the preacher. I am fed up with the music we've been having on Sunday morning. And she'd say, I'm so sorry. He's busy. He doesn't have time to meet with you. And they'd say, well, what about next week? And she'd say, he means ever. Because in my first 3 years in the ministry, I had an open door policy. Anybody could come into my office and take as much time as they wanted to tell me anything they wanted, and some of them abused that privilege. One lady took 3 solid hours to tell me how horrible I was. And at the end of the meeting, not only did I miss out on 3 potentially productive hours of work, I was demoralized and didn't want to do the work anyway. Well, an elderly pastor in our area named Warren Thuston, who's long since passed away now, saw my plight and took me under his wing. He would take me to lunch once or twice a week and just let me rant. And in retrospect, I was very insecure. It just killed me when somebody left my church and went somewhere else, especially a key member, which happened from time to time, or even a staff member. It was devastating to me, and because it was so devastating, I made the dumb mistake that sometimes inexperienced or underconfident leaders make. I compromised my vision. I was not constant. Let's suppose, metaphorically, my vision was to go due north. Well, somebody would come into my office and say, well, God told me we're supposed to be going east. You know what I did? Dumb. I said, look, we're not that far apart. Why don't we go northeast for a while? You know what happened? 3 months later, they get mad and leave anyway. Somebody else would come into my office and say, well, God told me we're supposed to be going south. I'd say, well, we're not that far apart. Let's go east for a while. And they get mad and leave anyway. Within 3 years, I was 180 degrees off course trying to appease a bunch of people that weren't even around anymore. You want to talk about empty, passionless work. It's trying to fulfill somebody else's vision, and they're not even there to enjoy it. Well, Warren took me to lunch, and I explained to him how it killed me when somebody left my church. And he told me something I've never forgotten, which I guess goes without saying, because if I had, I certainly couldn't tell you. I told him how it killed me when somebody left, and he said, Billy, the church is like a human body. And folks, this goes for a business, it goes for a school district, it goes for a Boy Scout troop or the Lions Club. He said, the church is like a human body, and all healthy bodies need regular movements. And he taught how to handle it when somebody broke through my filter at the door to criticize me, because they caught on after a while. They began to lie to my secretary about why they wanted to meet with me. Apparently this is okay if you do it in the name of Jesus. I have no Bible verses to support this. I am basing this purely on empirical observation. They would tell my secretary they wanted to talk to me about subject A so that they could get into my office, and then once they got through the door, the subject would quickly turn to subject B, the real purpose of the meeting. And this is what Warren taught me to do. Sir, what is your first name? John, would you do me a favor? Would you play the visitor here? Would you just sit right here? And I will be sitting over here in my pastoral office. Yes, John, have a seat right there. John has come in here supposedly to talk about Sunday school or something, and then the subject quickly changes to how horrible I am. And this is what Warren taught me to do. John, thank you so much for having the courage to come in here and tell me this. I know it took a lot of guts to do this, and I know your views are very, very strongly held and sincere. But I just want you to know, as long as I'm here, we're going north. And we hope you'll come with us because we love you. But, you know, if you don't, there are lots of great churches out there. And maybe you'll go try a few and decide you like us better, come back. We'll roll out the red carpet for you because we love you so much. But thank you so much for taking the time to come in here. What Warren taught me is that if you grab a person's right hand and lift their elbow, their body comes with it. And in 15 minutes, John is out of my office, and I'm back to work. Let me tell you how to handle loose cannons on your dreamboat. The people who simply will not get with the program. You've told them and told them and told them, we're going this way, they keep rowing that way. This is how you handle it. You fire them! You will never be a great leader until you can fire people. Now, I know you're working for a public institution. It's a whole lot harder for you than it is somebody in a business. So you adjust it as you see fit. You're a smart person. And I never cut people off at the knees. I would give them a severance package so generous other staff members would beg to be fired. Pick me, pick me. So nobody can say I cut them off at the knees. But you're not doing anybody any favors by keeping somebody on your team who is rowing the opposite direction from everyone else. Last thing I'm going to say to you, don't ever forget this. Hire slowly, fire quickly. Build into your contracts a time limit when you can fire people without cause, if they allow that. And use it. If somebody slips through the net and they're not the right person, move them out quickly and get somebody else. You'll save yourself a whole lot of gray hairs or lost hairs or ulcers. I got 3 of them in the process. I named them after 3 of my elders. And move forward.